Hello, friends. I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. I have, I don't know where I was going with that. It's first day of school for my kid. So I had to drop her off this morning and I got to go pick her up shortly. But yesterday, on yesterday's video, Chris commented something. So we're just going to keep following up with this whole doing things just because and whatever. His follow up is we were talking. So yesterday I talked about building a gaming table, and I talked about I'm just gonna do it, like just put it together. It doesn't have to be a perfect piece of furniture, and I talked about how I would use plywood and construction lumber, that sort of stuff, to make it. And so Chris has this response was he has a wormwood table. There's a company called Wormwood. They make tables that start at about $1,500 and up from there. In reality, the table that I'm going to build out of pine and plywood and alder, if I were to build it for you, it would cost more than $1,500. There is no such thing as saving money as a woodworker. There is, like, obviously the table will cost me maybe $600, $800 tops to build in materials. That's less than buying, but I'm also building it out of lesser materials, in theory. This is what I want to talk about. So he said, I wish I had the tools and skills to build my own, but I'm super happy with what I got. A gaming table will be a wonderful way to really show off your woodworking skills. You don't really want a plywood box as your game table, do you? Have some fun with it, do some crazy stuff with it. I'm sure Em will be happier with an heirloom piece too. Otherwise, you're making it sound like a plywood top with half-inch barrel kegs as legs table we had in college. Well, to be fair, Chris, your table does have plywood. The base of it is plywood. That's what I'm going to make. So the box will be, the base of this table will be kind of a traditional table base. 4 legs, beefy chair rails, or beefy, stretchers. But the layer below the gaming mat will just be a piece of plywood. I'm not doing anything special down there. Now, what on top will probably be alder or ash. I can get those two fairly inexpensively, and they are hardwoods that people make tables out of. Like, they're legit. They're just not as expensive as the maples and the walnuts and the cherries because they don't grow they grow faster. They're not as hard, but they're harder than poplar. They look nice. They're a white wood, whatever. So the top will look like a nice dining table. The bottom will too, but we're going to paint it. This is going to be a farmhouse thing. But to dial all this back, the idea of heirloom furniture is kind of a bit nonsensical to me. In my family, there is pine furniture that has existed for over 150 years at this point, maybe even 200 years. That's just fine. And it's not made out of maple, it's not made out of a walnut, it's not held together with modern fasteners and modern glues, and yet it holds up and it's just fine. And I think that while there is a difference between oak and pine, sure, there is. If I built my table out of oak, the legs and all, if I built this bench out of oak, I wouldn't have divots in this top where I've hit it with a hammer. I wouldn't have scratches on the legs because this is pine. This is a softwood. This is a hardwood. This is much harder to damage. However, that doesn't affect the ability to hand the thing down, to pass the thing on. And in fact, that look, the dinged up leg, is the look. It's been the look for like 20 years now. People have been artificially beating up farmhouse tables on purpose because most farmhouse tables were made out of pine. You cleared the pine on your land, you used it to build your house, you used it to build all the furniture in your house, and then you lived there and raised animals and whatever. So in America, at least, there's nothing wrong with building a construction lumber table. That table will outlast your grandchildren. It'll be just fine as long as you use quality construction techniques. If you're just trying to glue some, slap some stuff together, it's not great. I will also argue that working with a wood like oak's a bad example. Oak is actually kind of difficult to work with because it splinters really easy. But working with pine can sometimes be more challenging than working with a hardwood because it's so unforgiving. Because it's if you make a mistake, it's super obvious. Whereas with a hardwood, you can get away with a little bit more because they don't blow out. They're not fibrous. They're not, you have to have sharper tools to work with pine, and unless you don't care about the outcome. To get a good fit, you have to be more delicate with your chisels because it's really easy to gouge. There are reasons why working with pine is it's difficult. So for this table, it will be the same wood that I used for these legs. This is Douglas fir. I'll be using 4x4 posts that I will mill down. I will be using probably Douglas fir construction lumber for the stretchers, and I will mill those down and make those look attractive. It will look, because it will be a well-built table. It'll look like a well-built table, and it will be a well-built table. But you and I will know that the base cost me $50 in lumber because I'm not going to be using walnut. There's no point. Now the top will be the most expensive part. I already have the plywood on hand for the base, and the plywood that I have on hand is cabinet grade, so the top of it is smooth and nice, and it's not full of knot holes. It's not like construction grade pine. This stuff is, well, when I bought it, it was like $40 a sheet. It's more like $110 a sheet right now. Inflation has been crazy. It'll be really nice, but it's going to have a mat on it anyway. Who cares? Like, I can make it out of whatever. OSB, and it'd be just fine. The chair rail where your arms rest and the top that goes on top the thing, that will be hardwood. That will be, again, either alder or ash. I can get those cheap. I can get poplar cheap as well. And I like poplar. I love working with it. I think it's a fine wood, but it is kind of green and it's not really super attractive in a table. So alder or ash, they look a lot like they look like oak without the grain, without the porosity. But anyway, the point of all this is, I think that the idea of heirloom furniture is a bit weird because most likely, if you have a piece of heirloom furniture that your family passed down, it is probably made out of poplar or pine, and it has a veneer. It has a glued-on veneer because wood is expensive. It always has been. And chopping down a very expensive tree and building a piece of furniture out of it, when, it's outrageous. And so as we do today, people made veneered furniture. Go watch restoration videos. Armoires, all that stuff. It's all veneered over poplar and pine. It's just fine. It'll be just fine. And I can make it look attractive with any wood. And we're going to paint it. So the legs will be painted, the base will be painted. It's going to show that farmhouse wear because it's pine. It's going to get dinged. It's going to get scratched. That's part of the kind of the charm of the thing. I'll keep the top nice, obviously. But if it's well built, in this case, I'm not going to use pocket holes because the insides of the rails will be seen when you take the top off. So I will probably be using a sliding dovetail to join the tabletop to the legs, or maybe just a mortise and tenon with some dowels or something like that to give it a little bit more strength. I will do something to make it a little beefier at the corners because a table takes a lot of racking stress, especially if you're gaming on it and leaning over it. So it will be reinforced, but it's going to be it'll be just fine. Okay, just wanted to get that out there. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is yearling. It's an adjective or a noun, is of a year's duration or an animal in its second year. Many of our family's racehorses are yearlings, which we put to pasture after their retirement. Yearling, Y-E-A-R-L-I-N-G. This might be a trigger warning for some, so be warned. As a hunter, when I would hunt, I would like to shoot yearling does. People around here are horn hunters. They really like to go after a buck with a big rack. They don't taste good. And I'm more interested in consuming. If I'm going to kill something, I'm going to eat it. And yearling does are the best tasting.